Welcome back to a thread of hope, walking Jesus' footsteps in the Old Testament. I am so glad that you came back again. Before we start, just a quick note that there's a lot of Jesus in the Old Testament, way more than 5 or 6 minutes a day for 40 days. So I've chosen a thread that I think makes sense, and I hope that it blesses you, but there's a lot more there if you want to dig in. So today we're going to get started and go back to creation. And we are just going to real quick talk about God created the heavens and the earth and the seas and the dry land and the creatures. And then he says, let us make man in our image. This is the very first place that we see Jesus, because God is not there alone. He's already talked about the Spirit hovering over the waters, and Jesus is there too. And there's a couple things I want to talk about with this. First of all, let us make mankind in our image, and it happened. So they were in unity. Already unity was important to God, and they were unified in making man in their image. The other thing is they're also diverse because they are 3 different entities. I don't begin to understand what that means or how that all works, but I know that it's true. And so unity and diversity, 2 things that our world could use very much right now, were there at the beginning because God put them there. So I think that's just a little aside, but it does include Jesus. So he's spoken in the world into being, and it's all been good. But when God makes mankind, he doesn't use his typical, and it was good. He said it was very good, which just goes to show that humanity reflects the beauty and the complexity of God's creation more than any other creature. He set us apart even then. So we see Jesus in the creation. We saw him yesterday in the fall, just a whisper of somebody that we know who is the Christ. So we're going to jump ahead to Cain and Abel, and we are about to witness the first murder. Over what? Pride. Why did Eve take from the garden? Pride. That's a huge problem, isn't it? So Cain offers a sacrifice from the ground. The ground has been cursed by God. Abel offers a sacrifice from the firstborn. And we will see later in Exodus 13:2 that firstborn humans and firstborn animals belong to God. And also, looking way ahead into Hebrews, we'll see that offering and sacrifice require blood. So God is pleased with Abel's firstborn sacrifice that has blood that is part of it. But he's not as pleased with Cain. I don't know that he liked it or didn't like it, but he was pleased with Abel's. And so Cain kills him out of jealousy and pride because his pride was hurt. And so that causes God to send Abel away, and he is no longer a part of the family that God first created. Going ahead many, many years, God is not happy with how mankind is going. The separation between God and man has gotten worse. Evil abounds at this time, and God sees that things aren't getting better, and he's grieved by what is going on in the world. So he knows that drastic measures are needed. And of course, he had a plan from the very beginning. So he calls for a flood to take over everyone but the righteous Noah and his family. This is a lot to take in. There is a lot here. We see God as a loving God, and he's angry, so he's just going to take out the world. That's not the God I know. What have we talked about for 2 days in a row now, and now the 3rd day? God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And part of who God is righteous and just. So this is very much in his character. Man has gone completely outside the bounds of what his world was supposed to be. And they are getting worse and worse all the time. And he doesn't see an end to it. And he can't just let that go. Part of his character is he is just and he is a promise keeper. And he has made promises that cannot happen with the way the world is right now. So, and let's be honest, these folks are not skipping out on parking tickets and skipping a day here and there of their quiet time with God and telling a little white lie now and then. This is real evil. Evil that even today for us are things that are unspeakable. So he has to do something about that. And God's character is right on point. We see a whisper of hope as God chooses a righteous man to start over. God's doing a do-over. You might wonder where we find Jesus in the story of Noah. It doesn't seem like he's there, but there are a few places where we can see him. First of all, Noah is a type of Christ. He is obedient and faithful in his relationship with God. Also, there was one door into the ark, and God closed that. Jesus says in John 10:9, I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and find pasture. There's only one door to the ark, and it provides refuge for all creatures. Jesus is the only door to heaven or eternity, providing salvation to all man. So there is a little bit of a thread there in that he's a type. Also, 40 days. 40 days in the Bible means a time of testing. And there were 40 days after the rains came down that the ark stayed out on the floodwaters before they came to dry land, which I'm sure was a testing. I mean, they had children there and animals, and I'm sure it was a time of testing. And Jesus was in the desert fasting and praying for 40 days as well. And he was tested by Satan while he was there. And the first thing, and pulling at that same thread we've been looking at, that Noah did when he got off the ark was provide a sacrifice for God. So that thread of sacrifice continues. Genesis 1 through 11 spans just over 2,000 years, according to most scholars. This is the foundation of the Bible. Our lesson's a little longer today because this is important. This is the identity and role of humanity in God's creation and how it is established. We see the reality of destructiveness of sin demonstrated. God displays his providence over sin, going back to the character of who he is, and his proactive intervention to redeem man, even though they continue to be disobedient. Yes, he wiped out a whole lot of people, but he saved Noah and he started over. He had a do-over. Long before the law was put into place, God moves in judgment against sin and pride. We talked about pride being a big problem with sin and how that affects man. Yes, we had a fall. The world is broken, but someone is going to come and redeem us. Cain rebels, but God preserves the line of humanity through Seth, who he brings along, who is very righteous. When man starts to put together a plan, I wanted to talk about this more, but we're already way over, to put together a man to get to heaven on their own, he confuses their language and disperses them. So these chapters set up, and there's so much more in those 11 chapters, and actually I think Job falls into this too, tell us so much of who God is as we move forward. And tomorrow we are going to dive into the patriarchs. Thank you for spending time. I know it was a little bit longer, but we covered 11 chapters. So tomorrow, Abraham comes into the picture and we start to see the patriarchs. Have a wonderful day.